Welcome back, guys. Today I'm talking about a very special preamp. If you're into separates or simply have years of experience in this hobby, you know how important it is to have a brilliant sounding preamplifier with all the connectivity you need. It controls so much of the sound and imparts a signature on the sonics of your system. In my opinion, it's a very critical component in your chain. This is a review of my Rogue Audio RP-1 Tube Preamplifier, made in the USA in the state of Pennsylvania. This RP-1 sells for 1800 USD new. Now, Rogue makes a lot of tube gear like power amps, integrated amps, phono stages as well. Rogue Audio's flagship preamp, the RP-9, retails for 7500 USD. So this RP-1 is their entry-level preamplifier. The RP-1 comes stock with two 12AU7 tubes, JJ tubes from the factory. These are new reissue JJ tubes. For my European viewers, 12AU7 is the ECC82 tube. Stock tubes are quite good by themselves, but who are we kidding? Most people that have tube equipment will tube roll. More of that a bit later in the sonic impressions section. So you can call this a hybrid tube solid state preamp, and the direct benefit of that is that the unit has a very low output impedance of 750 ohms. That's just perfect for driving a variety of amplifiers, easy to match to solid state amps. All you need to keep in mind is that when you're selecting a power amp, or if you already own a power amp and you're looking to buy a tube preamplifier, is to make sure that the input impedance of the power amp is roughly 20 times more than the output impedance of the preamp. This is necessary for gain structure compatibility. You do not want the input signal into your power amp clipping at the lowest levels of volume on your preamp. So when it comes to the Rogue RP-1 with 750 ohms output impedance, 750 times 20, that's 15,000 ohms, 15k ohms, and most solid state amps are at least that or well above when it comes to input impedances. Even easier to match the RP-1 to an all tube power amplifier. Almost all tube power amplifiers are rated at much higher impedances than solid state amps, so no issues there. So let's turn on the RP-1. So it has a 30-second warm-up for the tubes. You have your balance knob, a nice LED OLED screen, and then you have your volume control that also doubles as an input selector there. It also comes with a functional remote, but it's a pretty Spartan looking affair. It's made of plastic, not some heavy gauge steel or aluminum like some manufacturers do. It looks a bit tacky, but guess what? It is functional, and that's all we need here. So this is an all analog preamp, so no digital to analog converter built in. Has a pretty good MM and MC built-in phono stage. Gain for the MM section is 45 dB, and for the moving coil section is 58 dB. The choices of resistive loading are plenty. It goes from 30, 50, 75, 100, 230, 300, 1000, and 47,000 ohms. The amplifier comes from the factory set in moving magnet gain and 47k ohms resistive setting. Changing the gain and resistive loading is a very simple affair. You pop off the top, and you have sliding switches to make it to move it to moving coil gain of 58, and you have those dip switches in there to make your selection for the respective resistive loading that your moving coil cartridge needs. The user manual makes this very simple. Now, if we look at the back of the unit, let's start with this phono section first. If you notice here, the grounding screw is a bit distant from the phono input. At first, this annoyed me a bit as it could affect some of us that have tone-arm wires with ground wire attached to the interconnects that come from the tone arm. Most of these ground wires can be unstuck and peeled away from the phono interconnects to make room and stretch to that wire. If you're using separate interconnects, then this is a non-issue. Simply use a shielded bare wire to connect to the ground screws of the turntable and the Rogue RP-1. So it has 4 additional line stage inputs. The gain from the line stage is 9.5 dB, and then you have the HT bypass here. 2 variable outputs. You could use one of them for running subwoofers if you'd like, and a fixed out as well for perhaps recording onto a tape machine. Moving on to the best part here, sonic performance. I used a few different sources here. A restored direct drive Luxman with a 2M black, Artiphon 2M black fitted on for evaluating the built-in moving magnet phono stage. I used the RP-10, the Riga RP-10 with the Koetsu black moving coil to evaluate the MC phono stage. A few outboard phono stages were also used to evaluate the line stages, ranging from the very humble i5 Zen 2, review coming soon, to the more expensive Chord Huey and the Chord Symphonic. A Riga Apollo CD player was used for digital front end. Review on that coming soon as well. Also streaming via Qobuz on the Blue Sound Note 2 streamer through a Peachtree iDAC. I matched the RP-1 with a few amplifiers too, solid state and tube. Schiit Audio Azier, I used that amplifier while driving high efficiency speakers like my 4Pi model. Also used solid state Class D wired for sound, the ST1000 power amp. Also used the all tube Jolida 3502 power amp when driving a bit more demanding loads like the KEF R3s, the KEF LS50 Metas, B&W Matrix 801 S2s, and the Vandersteen 2CEs. And now coming to tube rolling, I used Mullard, new old stock Mullard CV4003s, the Mullard ECC82s, and the French Sifties. The stock tubes are excellent by themselves. The NOS preamp tubes I rolled some of them provided a different flavor. My favorite pick of the lot was the Sifty, but I mostly listened to the stock tubes because my Sifties had their duties on another tube amp that I have. The Mullards imparted lushness to the sound, sometimes at the expense of detail and dynamic expression. So I preferred the stock JJ12A7s that came with the preamp. It had the right balance, I feel, of spaciousness and the ease of presentation without sounding overly tubey. That goes to show Rogue paid very careful attention in selecting to use very low noise preamp tubes. Now, I've been listening to the RP-1 for about 5 months now, and so I have a pretty solid idea on how these perform sonically. The traits that get noticed almost immediately is how well the preamp extracts spatial cues and gives you that sense of air around instruments, performers, and a good idea of the ambience if the album is recorded well. The other noticeable sonic strength is the relaxed and effortless flow, the presentation that simply sucks you into the performance and you forget about the preamp, its tubes, and the rest of your hi-fi setup, and you start noticing and appreciating the subtlety and the nuances and the body of the instruments and the voices in the music itself. So let's start now with an LP. So this is Pink Floyd's Delicate Sound of Thunder. This is a 2020 reissue. This is remixed and remastered from the older version, and this version is way better than the original. This is a beautiful recording, and the RP-1 lets you experience the dynamics, the weight, tone, and body of the instruments here. Bass guitar and badass guitar riffs and growls on the track Sorrow. Just goosebumps when you're listening, and the solidity and the texture of percussion and the bass guitar on the track Learning to Fly is so physical and visceral. Outstanding album to showcase your system's strengths. I was particularly impressed with the built-in MM and MC phono performance here. But the preamps line stage is resolving enough to immediately notice the increase in the detail, the resolution, the dynamic expressions and spaciousness as you moved up from the inbuilt phono to the more expensive outboard phono stages like the Chord Huey, the Chord Symphonic. Next up, let's switch to some streaming here. Mozart's Complete Piano Concertos. This is volume number 9 by Cyprian Katsaris on the piano, Yoon Kook Lee, the conductor, and Salzburger Kammer Philharmonie. This is on Katsaris' own Piano 21 label. This is a 24-bit 48 kilohertz sampling rate streaming from Qobuz. The delicate playing of the piano keys by Cyprian Katsaris here, along with the accompanying orchestra strings, is absolutely moving. But while I did say delicate piano playing, that's perhaps in the beginning of the song. Cyprian's playing does get pacey and punchy with all those piano notes, and they come at you and they're rendered deep with full impact and body that'll take your breath away and simply immerse you into a musical soundscape here. Lastly, a CD. This is one of my favorite James Taylor albums, Gorilla, played via the Riga Apollo, feeding the line stage input of the RP-1. Second track here is called Music. This particular track showcases RP-1's capability of delivering the emotive content as the artist JT, James Taylor, intended. His voice, the electroacoustic strings, the slide, just sound so direct, without filter. Dim the lights, and it's somewhat like a personal, intimate performance just for you from James Taylor. So when he sings, don't worry, I'm not going to sing, but the words of the song are, "My dear friend, your head's been sinking like a stone. You must try thinking like a cloud sometime. There is a symphony inside us. There's 1,000 things for you to do, so come on." So the song is so soothing, yet invigorating. It's balmy, yet it's inspiring. And that comes through effortlessly. It goes to show the mid-range prowess of this RP-1. So that's it, my friends. In conclusion, I think Rogue's entry-level RP-1 really connects you to the music in a very direct, easy flowing and emotional manner that this kind of money will allow for a preamp. It has flexible inputs you'd need from an analog preamp, easy to read OLED screen, accurate volume control with the remote, just all around functional, superb performance. Can you imagine how good things can get as you go up their chain? From RP-1, there's the RP-5 and the RP-7, and then finally the RP-9 preamps. Thanks for watching, guys. Please share, like, subscribe, and click that notification bell, as I'll be reviewing more gear in the coming weeks, and you will get notified as I upload them. Thanks again. See you soon in a week or so. Ciao for now.